Alright, look, Hylians forgot their ancestral land in the sky 2 times, which isn't a lot, but it's weird that it happened twice. How does a civilization like Hyrule forget where they came from? The sky in The Legend of Zelda is revered as a mysterious and often advanced land of ancient Hylians. The people used to travel back and forth from the sky, then at some point, they just forgot about it. Twice! We're gonna look at each one of these instances and ask ourselves why. And how did it happen? And why is there always a time loop? Okay, bear with me. For the first instance, we're gonna have to get into the Zelda timeline. We know the Hylians came down from the sky after the events of Skyward Sword and repopulated Hyrule. They're still traveling between the sky and the surface on these birds called loft wings. But at some point, they probably got sick of the sky. We see a lot of people coming down from the sky, and gradually, they stop going up. Earth is peaceful for a time, and the direct descendants of Hylia, the Hylians, create Hyrule Kingdom from help from the Uku. Remember these things, they're gonna come up again. We can mark this era as the point where they stop going to the sky, but they still know of the sky. It's not just Hylians that descend from the sky, there's also these small things called Picori that come down. For the first time in Hylian history that we know of, Hyrule is threatened by evil beings. To combat these monsters, a small race of people descend from the sky to aid the Hylians. They bring the Picori blade and the light force to a blonde-haired, green-tunicked Hylian called the Hero of Men. The Hero of Men seals away the monsters in a box, and Hyrule holds a festival every year to commemorate the event, cause local village traditions or something. The Picori also stay on the surface, probably because they have no way to get back up to the sky. During the annual festival, the King of Hyrule holds a sword fighting tournament. He lets the winner of the tournament touch the Picori blade that sealed away all the monsters. Keep in mind, removing this blade would unleash all the monsters. From a national security point of view, it's like letting NBA players punch in nuclear launch codes, but then stopping them right before they hit the launch button. At that point, you're just asking for a national crisis, King Daltus. And that's exactly what happens on the 100th anniversary. The sorcerer Vati wins the competition, pulls out the sword, and lets out all the monsters. Because of the king's incompetence, we see a hero rise up to stop Vati. I'm gonna call him Link. Anyway, how he stops Vati is not important. What is important is that this Link meets the Wind Tribe, a group of people living in the clouds. Although sparse, they do exist, and Hyrule Kings are on good terms with them. Okay, that's enough backstory. After this, there's no more mention of the sky, so we can mark this point where Hylians definitively forgot the sky. So that's instance number 1. But before we jump to instance number 2, just because Hylians forgot about the sky doesn't mean they didn't rediscover it. In Twilight Princess, Link helps out a lost Uka. Remember these things? These people helped create Hyrule Kingdom. In his quest for helping the lost Uka, Link discovers a city in the sky. They find the Uka people in a crisis, but that's not important. Just know that Link rediscovered the sky here. The second instance of forgetting the sky is in Tears of the Kingdom. The Teary Kingdom is weird because the game is a sequel, but its lore is a prequel to Breath of the Wild. Breath of the Wild gameplay takes place 100 years after Breath of the Wild lore. The Teary Kingdom gameplay takes place a couple of years after Breath of the Wild gameplay, but its lore takes place thousands of years before Breath of the Wild lore. And it also includes time travel. In the Teary Kingdom, we learn about King Rauru, the first king of Hyrule. He states he is of the Zonai people from the sky and he descended to the surface. What? How can that be true? Is Rauru a fraud? No, cause the stuff about the sky and about Ganon ends up being true, so yeah, he's legit. Anyway, since Ganon is sealed under the castle and the castle has persisted for at least 10,000 years, there is no other game that took place for 10,000 years. Hey, shoot. By the time of Breath of the Wild's lore, the people had already forgotten about the sky. Okay, there you go. 2 instances where Hylians have definitive proof that they descended from the sky, but for some reason, forgot. Now you might be asking, how does this timeline fit into the other one? The general consensus is that the Teary Kingdom timeline occurs so far later than the original timeline that Timeline 1's Hyrule deteriorated and was lost to time. Then a new king, Rauru, descended from the sky and created a new Hyrule. But something doesn't sit right with me. Are these the same Hylians as the ones from the main timeline? How could they forget the old Hyrule but still remember Hylia? Especially since the written word has been present since Skyward Sword. Okay, look, I don't usually spout Zelda theory and timeline nonsense, but let me put my tinfoil hat on for a second. No matter how you look at it, the Teary Kingdom sits on a different branch of the timeline. No, the timeline split did not happen because Zelda went to the past. At that point, it was already split. So the split had to happen before Zelda arrives in the past, but sometimes after Skyward Sword. Without a doubt, Skyward Sword is the start of the Zelda series because of the Master Sword and Hylia. Like the bioarchaeologists of this world, we have to look into the flora and fauna of Skyloft and see how the natural history contributed to the split of the timeline. In Skyward Sword, we see two pivotal species, Loftwings and robots. The only Loftwings we see are Loftwings being flown on by the Hylians. There are no wild Loftwings. So we can conclude that Loftwings are a domesticated species and their wild counterparts are extinct. When Hylians permanently leave the sky, who's gonna feed and care for the Loftwings? Unlike their wild counterparts, most domestic animals cannot survive on their own. This is gonna put selective pressure on the Loftwings to adapt to their new environment. Either the species went through rapid physiological changes, like getting a bigger cranium and reducing their size so they consume less energy, or they were simply replaced by the Ukus. Then the Uku, being relatively close to Hyrule, helped with the creation of Hyrule Kingdom. Then I guess the Ukus on the surface became the Cuckoos. I mean, just look at that resemblance, but that's a story for another time. Okay, that's how the first timeline split. But in the Teary Kingdom timeline, both Ukus and Loftwings are not present. Likely going extinct because Link sneezed the wrong way or something, causing a split in the timeline. Maybe some avian flu that impacts both Loftwings and Ukus. That leaves room for the Zonai to come in and take their place. The Zonai study the robots, start to mine Zonai crystals, and create a positive technological feedback loop, essentially having an industrial revolution. Then, Rauru comes down to the surface and sets up a centralized government. And that's how we get the Teary Kingdom. So yeah, the Hylian Kingdom was shaped by who rules the clouds over Hyrule, the Uku or the Zonai. Before they descended to the surface, Hylians were living a hippie, government-free life. But you know, you need a government. Sure, you gotta pay taxes, but government gives you national security from, goblins. Actually, there's evidence of civilizations being forgotten despite having the written word. The Bronze Age. That's all for this video. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys next time. We don't know why these civilizations collapsed, nor do we know which civilizations sprung up during this time, because